We're going to talk about, as an employee, how do you advance yourself through the process of employment, of leadership, of development, of not just your skills, but your position, and the impact you have within your organization as well, too. So when we talk about wage, we're talking about your general entry-level employee, whether it's a laborer, whether it's administrative type work, clerical type stuff, whatever it might be, but you're a wage earner, and ultimately that covers about 80% of the population that's out there. You have enough ability to do a skill, do a task, and do it from start to finish on there to help the process out. Then you get in the role, which the role basically is it's a person who's in charge of 2 or 3 people that has maybe more of a skilled set that they've learned and developed through possibly being a wage earner in some regards on there. And that role now entitles them to a little bit more leadership, a little bit more responsibility at that point, and a little bit more benefit at the same time. So this may be a crew leader, a shift leader, something along that lines where they have a different skill set or advanced skill set over just a wage earner on there. Then you get into manager on here, which ultimately a manager is somebody who's overseeing a process, not just the product in regards to this. The process being putting people in place and training them, developing them, making sure that they're doing their job and that the team collectively is moving forward. That's a manager. A leader is somebody who is truly developing the people beneath them at that point. They may still be managing the process, but they're actually developing people that help move along in this process as well too. You're not a leader if all you're doing is managing a process. Leaders move into the people realm of business and of the product ultimately at the end of the day. So that's an important thing. Impact players, these are people that are game changers. They're the ones that are changing industries. They're the ones that are truly impacting some of these leaders to go out and do bigger and better things themselves. They're moving people through this process at a higher degree. And to be honest with you, they're almost detached from this at this point because they're moving 18 steps ahead of the rest of the organization to open up a new path, open up a new way for these people to move into that's on there. There's very few people within that. I estimate, again, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 25,000, depending on kind of what you're talking about, but they're game changers. People that really shift industries, shift people with that regard. So again, now that you know kind of where these things fall, you got to put yourself in that spot. Where do you sit right now in terms of what you bring to the table on there? Now, here's the trick. I want to go through this not to define this. You got to understand where you're at. You have a level of awareness to understand where you're at. Now we want to get intentional about how do you advance yourself? How do you move yourself along? The wage earner is somebody who thinks about things right here, right now. They can't get past right here, right now. What's the need? What's the urgent thing going on that I got to figure out right now? Their level of ownership over things. If something happens, they're very quick to pass the buck to somebody else. He told me to do it. They didn't do their job. Not my fault type of mentality 95% of the time. They don't take ownership. You get into focus. In other words, what do you focus on? And in this case, the majority of people, they focus on themselves. What do I want? What do I need? What can you give me versus what can I do for these people around me? 100% of the time almost. Where is their energy devoted to? It's devoted to the task at hand in this circumstance. In other words, I got to rake this. That's what my focus is right now. I'm going to rake that. I'm going to put my energy into that task that's on there, which is not a bad thing because you've got to be able to master that to move past this point. So now you get in the role though. Role people are focused on the day. They can look at, you know what, from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m., I got to get these things done within there, and I got to coordinate these couple people to get them done, and I got to be able to master this task or master this kind of job that I've been given to make sure it goes through completion at that point. And they have the skill set to be able to do it. Level of ownership, same thing. They are, level of ownership's kind of there, but if things get a little uncomfortable, they're quick to pass the buck to it. You can tell by their talk. Again, do they blame or do they take responsibility for stuff in regards to that? 75-25 passing the buck. Focus on this. Again, opposite inverse of this where 25% of the time they're focused on other people because typically there's other people around them that they at least have to coordinate. They're not real interested necessarily in helping those people, but they're going to know enough of what's going on around them to put those people in the right spot so that that person can get their job done because it helps them focus on them at that point, if that makes sense on that end. Their energy is focused on the product. They have a skill and a product. Their job is to get that product done, whether it's just themselves or a couple of the people that they're having help with them. The manager, same thing. Their focal point's about a week. I'm going to manage a week. That's, again, general sense on that, some more, some less on there with it. And you can tell the more advanced the manager is, the bigger the time frame becomes at that point. Ownership, they're probably 50-50. This is a really mid-level spot for people to be. A lot of people get stuck here because it's comfortable. The ownership piece, 50-50 in terms of my responsibility, somebody else's fault type of thing. The focus, 50% on other people, 50% on myself. If I get what I want, I'll stay focused on other people that are out there. It's just, again, you listen to their talk. Is it a lot of I, or is it we? Is it they? Is it how can I help them type of thing versus what do I need type of deal? You understand where people are at in that realm as well too, and the progress in that piece of it. Their energy is focused on the process. So we move from the product, from the task to the product to the process now. They're more focused on the process. In other words, how can I make the process better to help these people do the job better at that point? And in some cases, them do their job better as well too. They're also focused on people. They have to be focused on people from a management perspective. In other words, it's the X's and the O's. This person needs to be here at that time and do this at that time, and they need to do here and here instead. They're moving pieces around, and that's their people part. They're not going to say forcing, but they're managing people's time and effort and skill at that point. They're just taking those variables and managing them at that point. So process and people. You get a leader perspective now. Again, their viewpoint is larger. It's a month, it's a year, it's bigger. Their ownership level, they take a lot more ownership. 75% of the time, they are, you know what, the buck stops with me. If my guys didn't figure it out, that's my fault for not getting them in the spot they needed to be and developing them in a way where they can actually do their job at that point. They take more ownership. And again, higher level leader, that number's even higher. It's 95% type of thing that's on there. Focal point. Again, they are strong others focused. If they're not, if it's a lot of me, I, they're not leaders, they're managers at that point. So that's just a way, again, listen to people's words on there. Energy on here. They are people focused, people energy devoted to them, but they're in the development of people. They want to develop the wage person into a role person, the role person into a manager, the manager into a leader. They view their job is to help make a human better from a work perspective. And again, the more advanced the leader gets, but also from a character standpoint, as a person. They're a better husband, they're a better father because of the fact that they're involved with this person who's focusing on them to help draw their strengths out more. And at the end of the day, they get their kicks. A true leader gets their kicks off of seeing somebody take strides to improve. Not just, oh, you're in a new position, but they're a better person. They're a better human being because of your involvement as a leader with that individual. The impact people that are on there, again, big picture perspective, decades, they're way out there. They have conversations that most people they can't even keep up with. It's out of their realm at that point. Ownership. They take dang near 100% ownership over things in general because they view, again, that's how they got to this point to begin with because ownership level was high. That doesn't change when they're more detached from the day-to-day stuff that's on there. They still view themselves as they are the end-all be-all. Focus on stuff. Their focus is almost exclusively on others that are out there because they know, they've learned they can't do what they need to do without others. And at the end of the day, they get their value based upon, again, serving others in some capacity. And at this level, that serving others is not just your employees. It's not just your organization. It is a community as a whole. It's a state. It's a country. It's a world. Their perspective on people is much greater in that regards on there. And that's where it comes back to is that they are massive problem solvers. They look at, you know what, this industry can't get past this point because this is a need and there's never been anything figured out with it. I'm going to figure out how to fill that void. They're big vision people on there. In other words, it's not like, well, we're going to do X amount of revenue this year type of thing. No, they're like, you know, we're going to take over this industry because there's somebody needs to step up and make a difference before this whole industry dies. Or for the fact that this will affect people's quality of life, that I have no impact over anything like that, but I'm doing it because it affects a higher quality of life for a lot more people on there. Those are impact people. They are so far beyond themselves, focused on other people on there. So I want you to understand, if you're here, for example, you got to start shifting your focus from a day to how do you manage a week at that point. If you can start managing a week, now all of a sudden you're starting to become management material at that point. If you can start taking more ownership over things, in other words, rather than the next time you feel like blaming somebody else for something, even if it's not your fault, you take ownership over it. You think to yourself, how could I prevent this from happening this next time? How can I help empower this person on my crew just a little bit more to help them maybe not make that mistake next time? That helps all of us move along on there. You're thinking, again, outside of you, onto others, but at the same time, you're thinking onto yourself because of the fact that you're taking ownership over that circumstance that's on there. And then you get into the focus piece that's on there. Same thing I just kind of alluded to on there. Your majority of your time needs to start being spent on other people. Get your head up. When all you're doing is working, focused on what you got in front of you right there, you're never going to start progressing into these two roles that are on there. You got to start getting your head up, see what's going on around you, see the people are succeeding and the ones that aren't. Find out what's the spots that this person needs some help with and this person needs some help with. Are you the person that pulls somebody aside after hours and says, you know what's going on with you today, type of thing? A wage person does not do that. A role person does not do that. A manager struggles, a leader starts to do that. If you're the person who's pouring into people when you don't have to, when it has no impact over your dollar that you put in your pocket, you're becoming a leader at that point in time. And lastly, like I said, when you go to work and you spend time on things and your energy devoted to stuff, what are you thinking about? And again, if it's just the task at hand, which is really easy because it doesn't take a lot of mental energy, that's where you're going to stay. If you can start shifting that focus into overall product, if you start shifting the focus into process, how to make this process more, not necessarily convenient, but more efficient, more productive over that course of time, now you start to think like a manager and even to a leader type of role. And if you start really looking at people from a perspective of not just managing a process with them, you start looking at them, how can I develop this person? How do I help this person next to me, below me, whatever you want to call it, take the next step? Now you're a leader. You don't do those things once you become the leader. You do those things to attain that level, attain that position, whatever might be the case on there. So that's a really important thing to understand, is that the mentality of I'll start acting like a leader when they make me a leader. It's the other way around. They will make you a leader when you start acting like and showing up like a leader that's on there. So just, again, start to pay attention to what you're doing, what you're saying, where the problems arise, where do you put the blame at, where's your focus with other people versus yourself, as well as, too, what's your energy poured into during that day. You start taking a little bit more inventory over that. Now all of a sudden you're starting to recognize some of those areas that you need to start to improve upon, and start asking the person that's in front of you in the line, you know what, can you help me with this? That doesn't go unnoticed either on that circumstance. If they start to see that and sense that, they're going to start pouring more into you as well too. So hopefully this helps.